Welcome to this conversation on Business Redefined, your weekly most comprehensive look at the world of business, finance, and economics. We want to talk about matters regarding leasing, and we're privileged to have on set Robert Nyasimi, the man in charge of RentCo Africa. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Robert, we have had a lot of conversation in the country, across the globe, about leasing ever since we came from the COVID shock. And many have asked the question, what can leasing do for governments? What can leasing do for the public sector? What are your thoughts?
In the simplest form, leasing to governments has been very, very beneficial. COVID resulted in a lot of reduction in tax to governments. So it meant government had less revenue, but the needs continue to grow. Now, every government requires to acquire assets. And one way of acquiring assets is through leasing. So there's a lot of public sector leasing. We've been fortunate in Kenya, where the government has been able to lease, for example, police vehicles. They've done medical equipment leasing. Now we are moving into infrastructure leasing. For example, when you hear roads being done under an annuity program, that is a form of leasing. Yeah, when governments adopt leasing, the beauty is governments are governed under different accounting standard, which is called the International Accounting Public Sector Accounting number 13. And if it's properly structured, whatever assets they get under leasing can be considered off balance sheet, so it doesn't form part of the sovereign debt. And that means they're able to acquire more assets without necessarily putting assets up there. Again, what leasing has done is that it has a multiplier effect in the economy. One of the things that leasing does is that the leased assets must be insured. Previously, when governments bought assets, there was no insurance, say, for police cars or any cars that government got. Now, when vehicles are leased, you have to do insurance. So insurance got new business. When the vehicles are leased, you have to provide maintenance. And some of the vehicles, for example, like in Kenya, that are located in Moyale and those kind of places, required that if it is Toyota, you have to go and provide maintenance there. So it meant Toyota had to upgrade the facilities in those remote areas. By doing that, they created opportunities, devolved activities in those areas. People got employment in those arid areas, which has really led to that, the resources went to the ground. The other thing that, because leasing makes you get more assets, for example, the same budget that would give you, say, 400 cars, got government 1,200 cars. When you import in 1,200 cars instead of 400, it means the dealers got orders for 1,200 cars instead of 400. That means the dealers got more orders. Government was able to collect revenue on more units. So there was a lot of multiplier effect into by using the same budget, and the government was able to get a lot of assets along that line.
Robert, someone listening to you would want to ask, we have seen, as you've rightly pointed out, instances where the national government has gone this route. What about devolved governments? What opportunity do you see there?
As RentCo Africa, we are very fortunate to have piloted the first true leasing structure for a county government, and that was Laikipia County. And we invested in about $8 million. We were able to give them road construction equipment. And through that equipment that they got, they were able to open up access roads within the county. And when you compare leasing in comparison to hiring, you find that leasing is about 40% cheaper. Yeah. So by giving the county government this leased road construction equipment, you can actually see a lot of testament. Laikipia actually had put out a testimonial on how much leasing are done to them in terms of how many access roads that they were able to open through the leasing program.
And what's the typical horizon of this lease structure?
Leasing depends on it. Leasing is governed really by the useful life of an equipment. For example, if you're looking at motor vehicles, majority of the time is about 4 years. If you do road construction equipment, you can do 5 to 7 years. Now, unfortunately, for the national government, you can always do beyond one election cycle. But we've come to learn on the county's government side, you'd rather lease within the life of that particular governor, because you don't know what the new governor who comes in, what opinion he's going to have. And we suffered because, despite the good intention of leasing and what leasing had done to the Laikipia County, when the new government changed, the part of the leased assets were terminated and returned, but part of them were kept. Yeah.
I want to walk you back to something you mentioned, which I think really needs prominence here. At a time when not just Kenya, but many countries are struggling with the discussion around sovereign debt. Yeah. How does leasing begin to recast that discussion?
We've been fortunate that we are in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and now we are going into DRC. And one of the things that we deal with when we go to those countries and we are talking to the governments is to show them that leasing is an alternative form of financing that governments can use to acquire. As I previously said, if properly structured, leasing will be off-balance sheet sort of finance. It becomes a service to the government. And when it is a service, then it's not a debt. Yeah. So the same assets that you would have financed using a loan, now you're accessing them through a lease, then they don't form part of the sovereign debt. Yeah. And then that, of course, now you're managing your sovereign debt.
We just came off a conversation with Robert Nyasimi, the founder and CEO of RentCo Africa, about what leasing can do in the public sector. Let's get a glimpse of what it can do in the private sector. We are delighted to have Zipporah Neboke, the head of business development at RentCo Africa. Zipporah, karibu.
Thank you so much.
Zipporah, leasing within the post-COVID-19 environment. Post-COVID, so much has changed in terms of the operational environment, access to financing. What can leasing do for businesses?
So leasing has so many advantages, to businesses. So in the private sector, you find that customers get assets that, like IT, for example. And IT equipment has a shelf life of 3 years. So the obsolescence is what we invest in as RentCo. So we take care of that. So the second issue also is a tax benefit that comes with leasing. So we find customers, clients and companies out there, to outright buy that asset. It has a component of depreciation. So during COVID, you found so many hospitals did not have equipment. Yeah, so they could not go to buy outright purchase equipment because of the cash flow that they have. So it takes a lot of cash to invest into an equipment. So as RentCo, we came in and partnered with a lot of suppliers in the market that are doing medical. So what we did, we partner with our local banks and also offshore. We take care of their 100% financing. We deliver an equipment to a hospital. Then they pay over a period of 3 to 4 years. We have two options. It can be a lease to own, or it can be an operating lease, depending on how their structures are. Secondly, IT. You very well know that IT is an area whereby the equipment only lasts for 3 years, 4 years, because of the shelf life. So when you're leasing as a corporate or private company, it becomes so easy because you're able to move with technology. You can advance the equipment as the time goes. So you're not stuck with the old equipment as well as suffering depreciation. Another avenue is lease to learn, a product that we are running with the universities. So we partner with two, KCA University and African Nazarene. Here we were able to give students laptops on a monthly or termly basis. So we structured the product in a way that a student from a humble background can come to RentCo and get a laptop and pay on a monthly basis. Remember, this is insured as well. So it's we take care of all the risks. So that way we were able to spread also to other companies which are private, say for the schools, on the IT basis. So we are also leasing to corporate SMEs laptops for their staff. We are also doing hardware, software. We are also giving all other solutions that you can think of in terms of IT. We call it infrastructure lease. to an extent because we're doing end-to-end solution. There's also an aspect of motor vehicle lease for salespeople. Give an example, delivery guys, so these people move a lot. So there's an issue of mileage, service and maintenance. So we're taking care of the issue of, a company having a fleet manager on the ground always receiving like 100 calls from these salespeople. That is a big issue for companies. It's like you're not concentrating into your core business. Now you're running a mini subsidiary of running a garage. So for instance, you find a company had a sales force of 200 people. So, that specific department receives calls every day. But RentCo partnered with dealers, OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. We take care of the service issue from 0 mileage to whatever mileage that we'll have signed with the contract with the customer. So we change batteries, we change tires, etc. Also, that saves the company in terms of how they account their books because the assets are not sitting in their balance sheet. So that helps them in an event in future they need to expand and grow in terms of their credit worthiness. It improves a lot in terms of their ratios.
How do you ensure that the lease arrangement safeguards the interests of both the lessor and the lessee? To get more on that, we have Margaret Mushere, the Group Head of Legal at RentCo Africa. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much for having us.
How do you protect the interests of both parties?
First of all, for our leasing agreement, we must first ensure that it adheres to the International Financing Reporting Standard 16. Because a lease agreement, unlike a hire purchase agreement, is very different. A lease agreement, first of all, title is bestowed upon the lessor, who is the owner of the asset. There are big implications according to accounting standards. So we have to ensure that the lease agreement, first of all, adheres to the IFRS 16 rules so that we don't have tax implications. Who claims capital allowance on the asset? Is it the lessee or the lessor? A capital allowance is claimed by the lessor, not the lessee, because title is owned by the lessee. Also, we have the insurance of the particular asset. We make sure that insurance is taken comprehensively for the particular asset so that we protect it comprehensively during the tenure of the lease. Because remember, for a lease agreement, our banks are also extending a loan that is sitting in RentCo's books. So you must take comprehensive insurance for that particular asset. We also have payment obligations. Now, when RentCo works with our financing partners, which are mostly the banks, we put in our contribution on behalf of the client. That's why when we say our lease product is actually being sold at 100%, we're leasing it 100% to the client. We buy the asset, a specific asset on behalf of the client. Once we deliver the asset to the client, it means they're enjoying quiet possession. Now, behind the scenes, because of the bank, payment obligations have to be absolute and unconditional. So what happens in the event of defaults? Now, these are things, the legal issues that have to be captured in the master lease agreement. Because in the event of default, what happens? Do we repossess? Do we give them time? Which notices, and how long do we send the notices out to the client? Is it 14 days, 21 days, so that they are able to cure the breach or the default? Because once you do not pay your payment obligations, which are absolute and conditional, yet on our end as a lessor, we have made sure that we buy the asset, procured it on your behalf so that you're able to use it. It means we are at default, and default interest must also be captured in the lease agreement. So in this way, you find that, yes, we'll protect the financing bank, but also the lessee must understand their obligations. Okay, we sometimes have clients who are cash rich. So they lease an asset, and within 2 years they say, okay, I know we had an arrangement to lease for 4 years, but we want to now terminate the particular lease agreement. So what are the implications? So we school them and educate them, and it's captured in the master lease agreement. In the event of early termination, because of our obligations to the bank, we will now front load it and say, okay, you can pay so much money, less maybe insurance, because insurance is an ongoing service year to year. We will knock off the service and maintenance. Then only the bullet payment that is outstanding is now you pay it. Now, most clients come back to us and say, oh, but if I pay the full loan, then it means, or rather the full lease rentals, had I not earlier terminated, then I am required to own the asset. But we remind them, because we're residual risk investors, when I was pricing this particular asset, I did not price it to 100% the value of the asset. I priced it at maybe 80, 20, it's discounted in the first instance. That's why your lease rentals are very minimal. Meaning, by the time the lease agreement is ending and now you return the asset back to me, that's the time I realize my residual risk. I now put it out to market and I'm able to sell it at 20%, where what we had mirrored we would get at the end of 4 years.
What are some of the opportunities you are seeing and exploring in leasing within the renewable energy space? There's all this conversation around decarbonization.
RentCo Africa, which is the parent company of the subsidiary RentCo Renewable Energy, is focusing on industrial and commercial clients in the renewable energy space. At the moment, and basically it has been a natural space to look at manufacturing space where clients need cheaper, efficient energy for their manufacturing process. We have also been looking at the agro-processing and agro-based industries in the tea sector, in the sugar sector, and even in the flour sector. So that is our focus going forward. We've been able to invest in renewable energy in the tea sector. I'll give a case like last year we were able to launch a 1.3 megawatt solar PV grid tied for Sasini PLC. And to try and just give a hint on the impact that this has already had 1 year down the road, they have been able to save over 40% cost on energy based on the system. And of course, extending towards environmental sustainability, they are able to save over like 1,300 tons of CO2 footprint annually. So given that the system has a life expectancy of 25 to 30 years, so if you can project 1,300 to 25 years, that will be a significant mark in sustainable environment approach.
These lush green landscapes are the wealth of Africa. Wherever agriculture thrives, it is the nexus that births communities. Providing 26% of GDP and about 60% of total export earnings, agriculture is Kenya's mainstay, as 80% of local populations derive their livelihoods from it. Sadly, production has dwindled in recent years, mainly due to climate change. Kipkebe Limited is one of many plantations that produce the tea that ranks third among top tea producers worldwide and number one in the black tea specialty. For tea, and indeed every industry in Kenya, the biggest challenge is ever-rising energy costs.
That energy we were using then was not only expensive and non-renewable, it wasn't sustainable.
The UN Sustainable Development Goals of 2015 are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure peace and prosperity for all by 2030. In particular, SGD number 7 calls for the adoption of affordable, reliable, sustainable, and clean energy.
And so this solar energy came to us as a no-brainer. We saw the investment as something that was really beneficial to the organization.
It's quite sustainable, especially if we are able to harness most of it during the 8 hours daytime. And it's quite affordable compared to other sources of power. For instance, this can be about 50% the cost of the normal grid energy supply.
And this is the gist of the Kipkebe and Keritor PV solar power project. To take it all in, let's take a deep dive into what exactly just happened here.
We were approached by a local leasing organization, RentCo, that brought us a very good model of financing that we thought was very affordable. It didn't require upfront cash outlays from ourselves, and it gave us the flexibility to do this project and use the cash that we had for other projects. And so that was attractive for us.
RentCo Africa, a regional independent asset leasing company, is focused on accelerating sustainable business growth for clients, mainly through leasing solutions which enable businesses to take on bold investment steps with minimal impact on their capital expenditure.
As a business, our purpose and our intention is to support sustainable business growth. And with our partner Nyasimi PLC, this is exactly what we have done with this plant.
RentCo Africa proposed, designed and delivered the 1.3 megawatt Kipkebe and Keritor solar PV plant for Nyasimi PLC through the subsidiary RentCo Renewable Energy Limited. The project was installed in collaboration with RentCo Africa's EPC partner, Spenomatic Group. And this is not your typical power plant. This single-axis tracking solar system optimizes radiation all day long through its sun tracking system and bifacial modules, which ensure that even the underside of the panel also harnesses solar energy, a first of its kind in this region.
In layman's language, it will follow the way the sun moves.
The 1.3 megawatt plant will meet an estimated 30% of Kipkebe and Keritor factories' total power demand. The cost of saving power per consumption unit is also 30% lower than available on grid options.
Just between September and December, the company was able to save 10 million Kenya shillings from the use of the energy. But this figure will go up because during that time was the testing period. We were still going through some teething problems.
Over the duration of the 12-year PPA with RentCo, Nyasimi PLC is estimated to earn over 250 million shillings in electric energy savings. After that, RentCo Africa hands the solar facility over to Nyasimi PLC, who will enjoy higher savings throughout the estimated 30-year lifespan of the solar plant. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Not every home in this country is connected with power. So by Nyasimi taking 30% from renewable energy, we are actually creating 30% capacity.
Capacity taken off the power grid to benefit needy power consumers in the vicinity of the plant.
We were able to produce a kilo of tea for less. We are able to pay more because we retain our prices in the market, so we can pay more for that kilo of tea.
Solar is free, and in the tropics we receive about 8 hours of solar. And with this kind of project, we're able to monetize this natural resource. It's quite sustainable, especially if we're able to harness most of it during the 8 hours daytime.
Beyond economics, the shift in the direction of solar is driven by a deeper concern.
With this 650 kilowatt power, we are able to offset up to 35,000 tons of CO2 or general greenhouse gases. And that's a good thing for the environment.
We haven't done enough. The world is still getting warmer, more than 1.5 degrees annually, and that's something we need to reverse.
Kipkebe and Keritor PV plant is a beacon of our innovative technology, a business solution that ensures sustainability and growth for us and for Mother Earth.